Maybe it just
A
filled.
call to order the meeting of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency on February 15 at 12 o'clock. And everyone will introduce themselves. I'm Nancy Moe, I'll be chairing the meeting. Our board chairperson is out of town today, and I'm the vice chair, so.
Ruth Reinecking, board member.
Melanie Brock, board member.
Chris Bean, MRA staff.
Todd Gass, MRA staff.
Annette Marcia, so MRA staff.
Sir?
Tom Booth, Jake Paving Grade.
Louis Miller with Pitt Anderson Construction.
Scott Hoffman, Assistant Chief of Police.
Martin Kidston with LaCurrent.
Leslie Pugh, MRA staff.
Jill Dunn, MRA staff.
Ellen Buchanan, MRA staff.
Tasha Jones, board member.
We have the minutes from December 14 meeting. Are there corrections or additions to the minutes? A motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item on our agenda are public comments and announcements, and I did ask Ellen through Chris to make some comments about the fact that MCAT is at our meetings here, and we'll be making a video of the meeting. Now, what I understand is that the video will not be replayed live on MCAT, but we will need to recite our motions in full instead of just accepting the staff recommendation. So there might be, other than that, I don't see that we're changing our procedure at all. And Ellen, maybe you have some comments on that.
No, other than that, I think what the MCFAC board, which is MCAT's board, advisory board, recommended was that we do this for a 3-month period and see if there's a response to it, and see if there's a reason to continue to broadcast. 'Cause all of these meetings take up part of the city's hours, but there seem to be plenty of hours that they're entitled to on MCAT.
Right.
And I believe it will be scheduled for rebroadcast twice a week or something like that on Sundays and Wednesdays or some days. I'm not sure which days. It'll be in the MCAT schedule.
Okay. And do you understand that's during the week of the meeting, or is that twice a week for the entire month until we have another new meeting?
I do not know. I'm not sure how MCAT schedules that. So.
All right. Are there questions? Any questions about that? Okay. We'll go into our action items. The first one is the police facility at 101 Catlin, and I see that Mayor Engen is here, and our Chief Financial Officer for the city. So, Ellen, that's your project to present.
Sure. So we received a request, actually, last year, the mayor and Dale Bickle came to a board meeting and requested that they be allowed to proceed without prejudice on the purchase and renovation of a building on North Catlin at 101 North Catlin Street to be used as a satellite police facility, primarily as an evidence storage facility, but also the detective division, which is currently located next door to us, will relocate out there once the building is finished. And I think they indicated at that meeting that there would be a request forthcoming for the MRA to assist with the funding on that building. And we received that request from Dale Bickle in January and have it in front of you today. The request is that there are multiple funding sources for this, and it's roughly a $4 million project. The request is for MRA to provide debt service for $1 million of that cost. We can do it as part of the financing that the city's going to do over a period of years. I think they're going to do 20-year financing. We don't have 20 years of life left in this district, so it would be shorter term, or we can choose to pay it off in larger amounts and do it quicker. So I think Jill and I want to look at what the revenues look like in District 2 if you choose to honor the request. It's similar to what we did on some of the stadium debt, where we paid off $2 million in 4 or 5 years. instead of doing bonds and paying all the interest.
But the estimate is not that high of our participation.
No, it's $1 million is the request.
It's the debt on $1 million.
Debt on $1 million, correct. Or I'm sure they wouldn't object if we wrote a check for $1 million. We don't quite have that capacity right now.
Questions or presentation from,
You know, thank you. I think Ellen's memo explains thoroughly what's afoot here. We're happy to answer any question you may have.
okay. Has the department moved in there yet, or is the building ready?
Under construction.
Hopefully by the end of May, it'll be ready to be moved in. And we're looking forward to it.
All right.
The other piece of this is it frees up the space next door for much-needed city office space, so, because the city has a long-term lease on that, I think, with the intention of purchasing ultimately.
Yep.
In fact, I think we already have permission from the landlord to be able, you know, one of the things we're talking about is moving the housing office in there, which is really part of Ellen's purview. And so we already have permission to connect the buildings here, and so we can actually, you know, really connect those departments well together. So provide more space for MRA and for housing at the same time.
And we can enlarge the conference room.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Expand the Hal Fraser so we have a little more room for folks in here.
Seems adequate today.
That's right.
Seems adequate today.
Yes.
Okay. Are there questions from the board members for?
Yep, so this
Ellen?
amount is 102,834,102. This is the amount for the next, that we'll be paying annually. This is the actual debt service amount.
If we choose
$102,000.
to debt service it over the life of the district, yes.
And then you're estimating this for 4 or 5 years at that amount annually?
No, that's, if we amortize it along with the city's debt, then that's what it would come to a year for us,
Okay,
because we don't have 20 years.
all right.
But if we, you know, if revenues are strong in District 2, what we may want to do is just pay it off, you know, $250,000 a year for 4 years,
Okay.
or however it works out.
Are there other questions?
Yes, because this is an unusual request, or it seems like it to me. Typically, we would reimburse for specific expenses related to the infrastructure or whatever. So understand we're not going to be asked for any additional expenses related to the actual building or remodeling the administrative spaces, right?
This is all in.
Okay. Any estimate of what those expenses would be?
Are you talking
'Cause
about
this
for
is
the
all
building
coming out
next
of-
door, or are you
Well,
talking about the?
Well, I'm really talking about the
Police
police,
building.
the police building, because that actually is in ERD 2. So
Mhm.
ERD 2 is going to end up paying, in some ways, for part of this administrative cost of expanding the office here, or the,
That would be,
It'd
that
be
would
the
be a
equivalent.
separate issue.
okay.
And, yeah, and you, for those purposes, you would likely allocate, I'll let Ellen or Chris speak to this, but you would likely allocate to, you would allocate a
Administrative
portion
expenses.
of the benefit to the districts.
Right.
Yeah.
So any idea what the actual expenses would be that would be more like our typical reimbursement for the police building?
Well, because the police building is a public facility, we treat it differently from most of the other projects that come before you. So we're eligible for bricks and mortar beyond infrastructure.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Public
Yeah.
buildings.
If
Okay.
I'm understanding your question.
Okay, yes,
correctly.
that's
Yeah.
exactly where I was
Yeah.
headed, but thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
And we did something.
Somehow figuring that out.
So, we did something very similar for the county when they were doing their evidence storage building down in District 3. We contributed to that because it's a publicly owned building.
Okay. It was before my time, so
Yes.
thank you for,
You can
Thank you for the
buy and
history.
build for public facilities.
good to know. Thank you.
Other questions? Tasha?
Yes, just looking to the budget status report for ERD 2, can you let us know what your thoughts are on what the outlook may be, since you're predicting that there would be different ways to handle this in the future.
Well, just a kind of a history lesson, District 2 was pretty lean for a number of years because of the amount of investment we made in infrastructure by building Wyoming Street, Silver Park, and the railroad trestle improvements. Now there's revenue coming from those investments, and this is the first time we've seen anything near a $2 million number in 10 years or longer. So, I mean, there's no reason to think that this won't continue to grow as we see additional investment in that district. And then with Russell Street coming online, I think you're going to see more investment along Russell as well. So I think it's going to be a pretty healthy district in its latter years.
Okay, so do you expect that not only will there be capacity to handle this request related to the police facility, but there would be funding available for other projects within ERD
Yes.
2? Okay.
We've had our financial advisors run a capacity analysis on both ERD 2 and 3 with this year's revenues, and we're pretty healthy.
And these funds, so what I'm understanding is that we're initially looking at $102,000 for a period of 13 years to be taken out of what our contingency for this year is over $2 million. And that's $100,000 a year.
Right.
Okay, all right. I know this is not quite this project, but are there any estimates on just the cost of acquiring the adjacent building and what MRA would be asked to contribute to that?
I don't know, I haven't been in those negotiations, if they've happened.
We haven't, we have a lease on that facility right now, and so that lease will just, what we envision is that lease will continue, and we would be, we'd have a pro rata share of that, you know, the amount that housing takes up would, you know, housing would pay that pro rata share. There's room for other departments in there as well, so I think we would just, our intent would be to pay those lease payments, continue those, until at such time we have the ability to acquire those facilities, and at that time we'll, you know, we create a budget request to figure out how we would finance those things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we may not do anything initially more than put a door between the two, if we do that.
Okay, all right. Other questions on this project for the police facility? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the request to help fund part of the cost of constructing a police facility at 101 North Catlin Street through the commitment of adequate TIF funds to debt service $1 million, with the understanding that staff will analyze the preferred term and bring a recommendation back to the board for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Good luck with your new facility.
Thank you.
moving
Thank you all.
in. And you folks are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you're not required.
Only Scott will be saying.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the Palmer Street Sewer Main Extension, the NRSS ERD, and Alan. That's you again.
This is a request of opportunity. The Health Department, the Water Quality District, in partnership, I think, with Public Works and some other entities, is going to construct a building on City Shops property, right about where we've got the little park on Scott Street, right north of the City Shops facility, and then just to the west is a large parking lot. Beside that parking lot will be a household waste pickup drop-off spot for things that are not appropriate or allowed in the landfill, so that it's not something we're doing once or twice a year, but it's on a...
So it's west of the park. The park is going to stay,
The park stays for now.
okay.
If you recall, the North Reserve Scott Street Master Plan called for that park to be relocated to the north and for truck traffic to be routed on what becomes the extension of Palmer, which runs between the park and the which runs between the park and the city shops building.
This would be Palmer.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's north of the park. So one of the main purposes of that is right now all that truck traffic is using Rogers. Rogers is where we're seeing significant residential development, and there's a lot of interest in additional residential development beyond what Dave Edgell's doing currently. And we could probably get a larger park out of a development of that, but it's gonna take time before that happens, so the original plan to serve the new drop-off facility was to run just a service line through the park. And the decision had already been made to run a water main through what is the abandoned Palmer Street right-of-way. And it seemed to us to make sense to go ahead and put a sewer main in that, since that's the long-range plan for the district anyways, to do these infrastructure improvements and extensions. So we'll have water and sewer in Palmer when Palmer is able to be built. The city controls the property, so that we don't have to worry about a private donation or purchase of right-of-way in order to extend Palmer. And that brings the truck traffic south of where the residential development is, and also south of where ultimately the park will be located, and that park serves the neighborhood across Scott Street. So right now, they're having to dodge trash trucks and other large trucks that service the more industrial uses that are located in the center of that district. Obviously, there's a cost to doing this. It's about $91,000 that we would be spending for this sewer line extension, sewer main extension. But there's a budgeted amount in the plans for the drop-off facility of about $17,000. The engineering estimate is 16, so basically that offset will have us only paying for construction of the line. And it'll be done at the same time the water line is put in and minimize disruption to the park. So it didn't seem to make much sense to dig that up, put a water line in, dig up the park, put a sewer service line in, and then a few years down the road, here we are digging up where the Palmer Street's gonna go and putting the sewer main in. So that's the request, and I apologize for it being a little bit later than the agenda went out. It was still certainly within the statutory requirements of us getting information to you all, but there's some urgency with this to go ahead and get this done now.
Okay. Questions for Ellen?
Yeah, I think it makes total sense to put the sewer in at the same time. And I appreciate that the traffic will be routed away from the new residential development there, and all of that makes sense. On the 91.5, does that include some kind of a contingency?
It does.
Okay.
Other questions?
I don't know if I can ask it.
Yes, and who are you,
I'm
please?
Ed Weiss, I'm the bicycle pedestrian program manager for the
Thank
city.
you.
And former North Side resident. I was wondering if Turner was looked at instead of Palmer, since that's already the truck route through the residential neighborhood there. And so it's intersecting with the city shop driveway and extending the road to the west there.
Which one is Turner?
Turner's the one directly to the south of Palmer.
Right.
And so trucks that come from the interstate or from downtown, they come up Orange, go on Fifth, and then Warden, and then Turner.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the master plan people did look at that. Right off the bat, I don't remember the reasons why they decided to go on Palmer, but that was there were a lot of long conversations with street department, engineering folks, and parks department on where that should go. And I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at notes on why they chose Palmer over Turner. Some of it was, I think, putting it up in a place that would actually facilitate the neighborhood also, so that there would be an actual, and because that will be a main thoroughfare, and try to minimize the amount of traffic going through the city shops area. I know that was discussed, and I think,
The master plan does show that Palmer is the gateway, is a proposed gateway to the area, and that there is going to be a roundabout, there's a proposed roundabout at that intersection. So it's going to be, if it's not a major now, it's going to be, or anticipated to be. I don't know if that's the reason, but,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
okay.
I think part of it probably had to do with which pieces of right-of-way had or had not been vacated, and which pieces would be the most attainable without having to go through purchasing right-of-way from private property owners.
some of it also is how well these things
Right.
connect to the north, so we start putting in the grid pattern. The Shakespeare and Bulwer, the north-south streets there, the right-of-ways are still there.
They just never were
They just
built.
haven't been approved.
And in other instances, pieces of right-of-way of streets have been abandoned.
Sections.
Yeah. Other questions? When is this project supposed to happen?
This spring.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? There a motion?
I'll move that the MRA board approve an amount not to exceed $91,000 for the design and installation of a sewer main extension to serve the household waste drop-off facility at the city shops, and authorize staff to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Public Works Department.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So unanimous. All right. Now we're on to the Montana Rail Link Park. Is that the name of the park?
That is the name of it.
Okay, all right. And we have two memos, one with the packet and one from yesterday. On the construction manager at risk, Annette, please.
Sure. So I will be before the board several times this spring about Montana Rail Link Park, just because of the way that we've structured the park, or the structure of the process that we're going through. And as you might recall, at the December 14th meeting, we asked for approval to use an alternate project delivery method for this project. And on January 8th, we got approval from City Council to pursue that process. Then we proceeded with an RFQ and an RFP process. We had 6 firms that responded to our RFQ, and the evaluation committee, which was composed of me and Todd, Neil Miner, and Patrick McGannon from Parks, and Chris Anderson from DJ&A Engineers, who's the engineer on the project. We were the evaluation committee for both the RFQ and the RFP. We narrowed the RFQs down to 3 preferred firms that we felt were qualified to receive the RFP. And then we received those evaluations, or the RFPs, last Friday when this initial memo went out, which is the reason for the second memo. We evaluated the 3 proposals and conducted interviews with all 3 firms. And after considerable deliberation and careful evaluation against the evaluation criteria, we've recommended Dick Anderson Construction as our preferred CMAR for the project. And at this point, they will be giving us fees in 3 portions. One is a pre-construction fee, which I'm asking for approval for today. Then when the project is ready to go out to bid, which we expect is somewhere toward the end of March, we'll be coming forward with a guaranteed maximum price, and from the contractors that will include their general conditions and their cost for managing the project. But because that's, we don't know what the bid price of the project is yet, that's still, we can't put a hard number to that. So at this point, we're asking for approval of Dick Anderson Construction as the preferred CMAR for the Montana Rail Link Park. And approval of their fee of $6,500 to provide pre-construction services for the project.
Could you please list what the pre-construction services are?
The pre-construction services will be, they will become a part of our design team. And so they will review the drawings that we have. I think they're almost at a 75% level now. They will review the drawings. They will put a very realistic cost estimate to those numbers. They will look at that and say, here are some ways that we think you might be able to value engineer, or that you might be able to modify your details in some ways that make certain things more constructible. And then they will prepare bid packages when the project is ready to go out to bid, whether we bid it as one package or whether we bid it in pieces, maybe bid out the utilities, or maybe bid out the landscape, maybe bid out the excavation and earthwork. They'll help us make that determination, and then they will manage that process. So that's
Good.
included in the pre-construction fees.
Thank you. Questions?
One comment. Most of you would have no way of knowing this because you weren't on the board at the time, but when we did Park Place parking structure, we did this same process with Gordon Construction, and we had a contract with them for pre-construction services, and then they gave us a guaranteed not to exceed number for constructing the thing, and we entered into a second, much more complicated contract.
Okay.
And Alan Franco and Louis Miller from Dick Anderson Construction are here today if you have any questions. Louis would be our project manager, and Alan is the project administrator.
Okay. Do you gentlemen have anything you want to add?
You know, nothing more than to just say we're very excited to be part of the team. And is myself and Dick Anderson Construction, we're excited to bring art to reality and help improve the community and be part of the solution. So thank you very much for having us here today and putting your faith in us. We will not let you down.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
How long do you expect this pre-construction phase to last? When do we move to the next phase?
The pre-construction, I think that Dick Anderson, in their proposal, estimated that the project, they try to get the project out to bid by, I think it's the 4th week in March. It might be sooner. I think the drawings are maybe a little further along than we had anticipated. It might be sooner. But we all of us don't want it to go past the end of March, or we're going to miss a competitive bidding season. So we all have reason to make it as soon as possible, but the end of March would be the latest.
Okay.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve Dick Anderson Construction as the preferred construction manager at risk for Montana Rail Link Park, approve a contract for pre-construction services in the amount not to exceed $6,500, and recommend that the City Council also approve Dick Anderson Construction as the construction manager at risk for MRL Park Construction, authorize the MRA Board Chairman to sign the contract, and authorize staff to sign the necessary documents to execute the contract.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. I do have a question, and is approval of this motion, is that also approving Dick Anderson Construction for the entire park construction?
It is not. We had in our RFP that while we expect that the preferred contractor that we select will continue as the CMAR, if for some reason there just was a logjam and we couldn't get past it, we do reserve the right to select a different contract manager. We don't expect that will happen, but that approval will come, or that request for approval will come when we bring the guaranteed maximum price and begin the bidding and construction process.
Okay, then I suggest that we that we have an amendment to the motion so that it's for the city council to approve Dick Anderson Construction as the CMAR for pre-construction services.
I see down there, yep.
Great, okay. Because it appears that we're asking the
Yep.
city council to approve them for everything. And Melanie, do you accept
I
that as
accept
second? Okay.
The city council approval is required by state law because we're using the alternative project delivery method.
Right, and I understand that. I just want to make sure that the city council is approving the same thing we're approving.
Right.
All right. Is there any, does everyone understand? Okay. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion with the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I guess, are we supposed to vote on the amendment first? And then,
Not if it's
No.
accepted.
okay, all right, that's accepted. All right. Those opposed? No opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We are also excited about this park, so.
Well, thank you very much. We are too.
Right. And you can stay, you don't need to stay. Okay. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. So our next item relating to the park has to do with playground equipment. Annette?
Yes, so I'm back in front of the board about Emerald Park. So we have, we're proposing a playground in the park that integrally fits into the design of the overall design of the park and the railroad theme of the park. Playgrounds are their own sort of unique designs that are typically designed by specialized playground designers and installed by certified playground installers. We have very few of those locally, and we felt that there's also a very long lead time for, particularly for getting delivery of equipment and getting installers to be able to install the fixtures in time for us to open the park. So we felt in this circumstance that it was prudent for us to pull the playground as a distinct piece out of the overall project, to bid it separately, requesting that whoever replies to the RFP give us a design for a playground that then provides the playground equipment and does the installation, which will make, they're certified, and then they would have the liability for what they're installing. And so we're asking for a request we're asking approval to release a request for proposals to solicit this design and installation fee and proposal for the park. If approved, the schedule is that we would release it this weekend, and we will give bidders a month to respond, particularly because we're asking for design, and receive the proposals. What we're hoping that we will be back in front of the board next month to get approval for the proposals that we've received, the one that we prefer.
Okay. Questions for Annette?
How did you arrive at 180,000, and does that figure include installation?
That figure does include installation, and we arrived at that estimated cost. It was estimated by our landscape architects on the project who have done a number of playgrounds. It also was reviewed and vetted by the Parks Department, which has also purchased and overseen installation of a number of playgrounds here in Missoula, and they feel that that's it's a very solid number. We also, in the RFP, we're asking, rather than giving that as an upset amount, we're asking for a range between, I think it's like 160 and 180,000 so that if we are in value engineering, when we get into the greater project, that the designers of the playground have thought about pieces that they might be able to take out to get us back down to, get us some savings and still save the integrity of the playground.
Okay, other questions?
You
Melanie?
somewhat answered my question. I was just wondering, Parks and Rec's involvement, will they also be looking at the responses? And they've done such a phenomenal job these past couple of years with the new parks and parks updates, so
Yes.
they're totally at the
Yes,
table.
They're totally at the
Okay.
table, and Patrick McGannon essentially has written the request for proposals. He and I have collaborated, but he has essentially written the RFP. It will be issued from MRA, and they've been integrally involved, and when we put together the evaluation committee, both Neil and Patrick will be on the evaluation committee. I probably will be on that committee, and we probably will have our landscape architect and someone else.
Okay, other questions? Then Annette, this design that's going to be developed, that's with consideration for the neighborhood participation that's already happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Ellen?
So just to give this a little more context, the MRL property comes with kind of four pieces. One is the purchase, one is the trail that you're gonna hear about in a few minutes, and one is the park, and then ultimately how we develop the northern portion of it. What we have done, we've put off issuing bonds for that because we wanted to see how the numbers came in for the trail. The way we're handling the park is, it's an MRA project. We're managing this project as an MRA project, and we have set a budget for it. And if it starts pushing up against that, then the value engineering needs to kick in. Rather than having this kind of open-ended, it could cost anything, and we don't know what to bond for. So we will be coming to you in March with issuing bonds for all of the MRL expenses that we know to date, which will probably be in the neighborhood of a $4 million bond.
Okay, and so that $4 million figure will include developing the rest of the parcel?
No.
No.
No, that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay.
It will probably be an RFP process and a public-private partnership with MRA and private sector
Okay.
involvement.
So Ellen makes a very good point that I neglected to just put out there. We, for the park, have established a budget, a total budget of $1.5 million. And that's inclusive of fees and if we have to do testing, product or material testing, but that's inclusive of all of those elements. So the cost of the playground is a part of that, and I'm keeping a budget or a spreadsheet of everything that is being subtracted from the total number, and this has been figured into that total number.
Okay.
The playground.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move that the NRA board approve issuing a request for proposal to select a consultant to provide design, all playground equipment, and complete installation of the playground at MRL Park.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Annette. That's, we can really see this project is moving forward. It's getting exciting.
It really is, and it's very, very exciting. And I think we have a really great team that is all working together, and everybody's excited. And
Good. Good. So next action item is also related to the park. It's the Johnson Street Extension project, and Todd has that. And also in materials that were on the table today, he also has a second memo with a recommendation. It's this short one. So, Todd, we're also excited about your part, so.
It's part of the park too,
Yeah.
so let's be excited.
It's your turn.
Yeah, it was in April 2017 that we introduced the trail extension project to the board. The board approved DJ&A PC as the project engineer to design and engineer and administer the contract for that project. The project involves installing a 10-foot wide paved trail from North Avenue here and ties into the trail here at North Avenue and ties in down at the south at Livingston Avenue. So we're filling in this gap here. This is like the last final gap on the Bitterroot Trail between downtown Missoula and Hamilton, Montana. So it's a pretty exciting thing. We had kind of a lengthier review process in getting to final design. Originally, we wanted to get this designed and built last summer and fall, and that review process kind of stretched out far enough that I think we made a strategic decision to hold off on bidding that project until this winter. I think that's paid off with some favorable bids that we've received. And I wanted to just then show a couple highlights of the design. What we come up with here. Okay, so there's the stretchy trail between North and Livingston. Sorry, I'm kind of coming down with the sore throat this morning. I cropped this piece out of the construction drawing showing the trail between South Avenue and North Avenue, so I could show the intersection here that we're creating at Central Avenue, and we'll be making a new pedestrian bicycle crossing over the tracks in this location, which ties into the city bicycle network master plan of a future greenway using Central Avenue. And then as part of the park project, they'll pick up that trail here and they'll bring it over to Johnson Street. So we will have a connection between Johnson and Central here. That's also a 10-foot wide paved trail. If I zoom in on that intersection a little bit, we have we're kind of creating a monument for our Golden Spike project, connecting the north link and the south link together, and kind of the final coming together of the trail. And that's in this confluence area here. That will be with a 2-foot diameter bronze medallion, and that medallion will then be laid into a couple concentric rings of stamped and colored concrete with some text on there. Bitterroot Trail linking communities. There will be some text inside the medallion talking about the trail connection between Missoula and Hamilton, and the efforts to build this trail and the importance of connecting communities. So the Golden Spike, I think, kind of stays with the railroad theme of the park, and a couple of these landscaped areas here that MRL has expressed an interest of later on, not part of this project, but later on adding some interpretive signage there and recognizing the history of the railroad in the Missoula and Bitterroot Valley. So that can be kind of exciting. Some future addition to this intersection here. And the last thing I'd highlight is the signalized bicycle crossing of South Avenue. This will be a 10-foot wide laydown of green colored resin material delineating the trail as it crosses South Avenue. It's signalized and will be activated through what we call an induction loop. And I didn't include a drawing, but these little boxes here will be painted green also. And the way this works is a bicycle will travel down the trail, and if they park in a little box here, the induction loop is under that box, and that's a sensor that can tell that there's a bike there waiting, and that will send a signal to the traffic control box to activate the crossing signal. There'll be a signal pole on either side with the bicycle signal head in that, your red, green, blue, red, yellow, and green for crossing. So if the induction loop is activated, it'll send the signal to the traffic control box, and that signal will be activated during the phase of traffic movements when left turns are occurring on South Avenue. So at that traffic light phase, if there's a bike in the box, that will open up the signal crossing here. That was important to our traffic services division because it doesn't add any additional delay time to the intersection. It operates within a current phase of the traffic signal. So we will also be making a few pedestrian upgrades then. Pedestrians will still make a double crossing to cross the intersection as they do now. This will be a bicycle only, so if a pedestrian stands here, it won't be picked up in the signal, and that light won't activate for them to cross there. So, but we will be realigning this crosswalk on Johnson here to be, it'll shorten the distance between the ramps and realign it to be perpendicular to the traffic movements here. And then we'll also be installing a traffic light here to improve the lighting levels for pedestrians.
Street light.
Street light, I'm sorry. The street light here, it'll raise the light levels for pedestrians, so. So we opened bids on Monday this week, which is after I had my memo drafted last Friday, so I said I'd be making a recommendation today. We received, I think, 4 bids. And interesting, the 2 low bids were only separated by $820, which makes us feel pretty confident in that bid number. And that was we received that from JAG Paving and Excavating. That's Jason Long owns that company. It's kind of a new company in the valley, but Jason has 25 years experience in and a lot of his experience is building trails related to MDT projects. So we think we have a contractor we can be confident in, and staff is recommending that the board move to award a construction contract for the Bitterroot Trail Johnson Street Extension Project to Jade Grading and Paving in the amount of $424,784. Authorize the MRA board chairman to sign the construction contract and authorize staff to sign the notice of award and the notice to proceed.
Any other comments on the
It
questions?
seems to me that South Avenue crossing has been fairly complicated to try to accommodate the potential users there. And I think that we also in the last year approved some tip funding for Merle Norman on the northwest
Yeah, that's
corner
right.
there. So as we're doing the street crossing, we won't have to disrupt anything that has already been constructed on that parcel.
Chris?
Yeah.
Or will we?
I can jump in there for a second, no.
Okay.
And actually,
Because,
the Brill Norman folks actually tried to work with this whole, where this project might be. So when they were putting in their sidewalks and their adjacent amenities, they would actually enhance pedestrian experience across. They're gonna put in a bench for pedestrians if they want to be there and so on. So, I think there was some conscious design work done on Betty Wilkins' part when she built that building
nice.
to accommodate this.
If I may, it's one of the reasons that we put in the extra effort to study and try and get that diagonal crossing for bikes was that by removing them from the pedestrian space, we wouldn't have to do any additional work to that northwest corner to either widen out the cement or do something different with the configuration.
Good, these are concerns that that MRA raised in its previous discussions. I'm glad to see that, the thoughtfulness that has gone into this intersection.
I would like to add that I appreciate that there's going to be at least a pedestrian and bicycle crossing across the railroad tracks at Central. I think for the future, that's a great thing to have that there.
Okay. Your other questions?
This induction loop works just fine in the snow. It's more weight-based than
Metal detection.
metal detection.
So when Todd said that pedestrians won't.
So runners aren't going to trigger it that
No,
way.
Mr. T might if he's waiting.
That's fascinating technology.
I think the way that works is it senses the metal frame of the bike.
Yeah, and it can be
Metal
dialed
detector.
in pretty sensitively, and one of the reasons that it doesn't work on our streets as well, and does in less snowier cities, is that our metal loops buried in the streets are lower. Sorry, I'm getting in the weeds here, but we have thicker asphalt because of our plows and heavy truck traffic, and whereas a city like Portland or Seattle that has less snow, they're able to have the loops actually pick up bikes on the streets as well. That was one of the things that we had to look at, though, is that our loops don't pick up bikes on the streets as well. And we had several consultants tell us, well, since we're doing them in a trail and we don't have to worry about thicker asphalt for big truck traffic and plows, you'll be able to dial them in just fine.
What about, I don't know, are there fiberglass frames for bicycles? Or?
There's carbon fiber, and even then, most of the wheels often have steel in them, and
Just curious here.
yeah.
Thinking of
Thinking the
everything.
same thing.
If
you have a plastic bike, you're in trouble.
Higher end user, and if they wait there for a second and don't, I don't know. It did come up in the analysis, and was determined to be a very small subset of potential users.
So is there a plan B if they don't set off
They can
this?
always cross with the pedestrians.
What is the timeline for completion of the project?
We should be starting in, well, as soon as weather allows for breaking ground, and it's a 60 or 90-day contract. We'll have it done here midsummer, I'm expecting.
Okay, other questions? In looking at the budget, this is taking up a good half of the contingency, or do we have other projects coming up?
Yes,
For this
issuing
year?
bonds that will pay for this trail
Okay.
and the park and the purchase of the property.
Okay,
Totally replenishes District 3. Right now, District 3 is carrying the cost of purchase of the property.
okay. All right,
And yes, there will be other projects coming along, but we have considerable capacity in this district.
right, and we have a new fiscal year coming up too.
Right.
All right, any other questions? A motion, please?
Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just gonna add
Sorry,
that
Todd.
the engineer's estimate was $554,000, so we're a good chunk of money below that. We had a couple of bids that were up near that, and then we have the two bids that were down here at about $425,000, so just a little additional information.
We were anxious to see how this was going to come in, because this is typically a favorable time to bid work, but everybody is trying to get work out to bid right now, and we're wondering if we've just eliminated any favorable time to bid work.
We don't want to compete with ourselves, too.
Right, right. Motion, please?
I'll move to approve the staff recommendation that the board award the construction contract for Bitterroot Trail Johnson Street Extension Project to JAG Grading and Paving in the amount of $424,784. Authorize the MRA Board Chairman to sign the construction contract and authorize staff to sign the notice of award and notice to proceed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, oh, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Ellen, there were a couple of mentions of signing contracts. Are those ready for signing today? or-
No.
Okay.
They've got to be prepared. One comment, MRL has been wonderful to work with on both of these projects. The trail and allowing the crossing of the railroad tracks at Central. It's just been a pleasure to work with them on all of this. They're great partners in the design of the park.
Great.
So they've been great partners for the community then.
They have been,
Yeah.
yes. They're excited about the park
Mhm.
and what it's gonna do for the neighborhood.
All right. Last item on our action items is the aerial photography that Todd wants to use to replace our maps in here. Huh?
Yeah, our wonderful wall photos. We pretty much are on a cycle of replacing these about every 4 years, 3 to 5 years, something like that. And normally we get that done within what Ellen has the authority to authorize for the expense. And I think I'm bumping up against what her authority is to authorize, and we may be adding a little bit to it this year, so I think I'll be over that amount. And essentially are asking for setting a $10,000 limit to do the 2018 aerial photography project. And I talk about in my memo that it's kind of a two-pronged thing, because we partner with the city GIS to get the overall valley flown and aerial digital imagery for the entire valley. And it's an important part of MRA's GIS system and the city's GIS system, and we partner on that, and we pay a percentage. We're kind of looking at, and we're interested, the company that we're working with offers a higher resolution product than we have gotten in the last couple of years. And of course, that drives the cost up a little bit, because we have to have more survey control on the ground and more intense processing for them on the end product of the imagery. And I talk in my memo about the timing. We're kind of still working through the costs, and I'd like to be ready to just say go when the conditions are right. The snow is gone, trees haven't leaved out yet. We have a nice blue calm day. They'll send an aircraft up here and fly the valley and collect their information. So I'm kind of asking for that $10,000 limit. I think that's a pretty safe amount. I'll try and come in as close to where I was the last time, but I think it's going to be over $5,000, and having that flexibility to enter into an agreement with the city GIS and Valley Air Photo out of Boise, so we can get the work done at the appropriate time. And that was my recommendation, that the staff recommends that the board move to authorize an expenditure not to exceed $10,000 for the 2018 aerial photography project.
Great. Questions for Todd? Ruth?
Two, not necessarily for Todd, though. I think Ellen's independent spending limit is $5,000 right now. We may want to consider increasing that at some point, especially as we get into anything that might need a change order or whatever without having to come back to the board. I'm just suggesting that we may want to look at that, and I'm not making a recommendation today. The other thing was, as we get these new maps, which I think have been very handy, not just for the MRA board meetings, but for many of the other meetings that take place here related to city projects, we're running out of space here, so I'm assuming that you're planning on including these in the expanded Hal Frazier conference room, so that perhaps we could get a little bit bigger resolution on some of the districts where they're a little more visible for use of the board, et cetera.
I think we obviously would do that. I mean, we're constrained. We had to go to a much smaller scale on this map than we typically do. But one of the reasons that I suggested Todd come and make the request that you're considering is that we're going to investigate whether or not we can at least take the downtown core portion of this and have it done at inch to 100, which is the larger scale map, and maybe it's a roll down. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be a way to do this, because we're down on our hands and knees looking at downtown over here, and that's where so much is going on.
Right.
Yeah, I think exploring some, like it used to be in the 6th grade geography class, when the teacher would reach up to the ceiling and pull
Yeah,
them out.
that's great. Well, no, it has to be a remote control now.
Yes. Modernize it, yeah.
That might take
I
us
always
over
thought
the
those
10,000
Yeah.
limit.
Well, we've even talked about it. We've got a screen up here that we don't use anymore because of the TVs, but you have to flip it out in front of the television. But there's a button over there that lowers the screen that could have a map on it
Yeah, right.
or something.
Well, if you get too fancy, that won't fit within the $10,000.
No, we just replace the screen
That
with
can
your
be a
map.
separate request.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're gonna have additional conference room space in the not too distant future,
It
right?
might be for the next.
Could be.
set of maps.
I guess I'm not counting on that
Oh.
as an immediate project.
Not for this year's photo
I
updates,
don't
but,
think so.
okay.
Tasha, you had a question?
Just what is the appropriate time?
It's gonna vary on what Mother Nature gives us for, it's probably towards the end of March and the beginning of April, but I didn't want to be tied to having to come to the board meeting for authorization on March 15th and try and get all the contracts ready if on March 20th was the day that they wanted to send an aircraft up and I couldn't act and have the contracts in place at that time.
Okay.
I think
These were taken on April 15th last year, so they were a bit later,
4 years ago.
4 years ago. So.
Okay. And then how soon after the work do you get this?
Couple months, month and a half. So they come, you can see the seams, they're like probably 4 foot wide sections, and then I tape them together on the floor with some staff help. And,
So ideally, you want the snow gone.
Yeah.
You want the trees starting to leaf out so that you can see the trees, but you don't want them fully leafed out because you obscure too much.
I
Can't
see.
see the sidewalks.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And then, and then they look for a good high-pressure system, so you have a nice clear blue day with calm winds, so you get a good stable aircraft flight. So, if we get one of those towards the end of March and you see a plane buzzing around the valley, that's our project.
I was the plane flying when I took those, this elevation.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that information. It's probably buried in the specs somewhere. But
You should catch a ride.
Yeah, well, just whenever it's like 2,000 feet, is that 10,000 foot view?
no, I think they're probably around 1,000, 2,000 foot, just guessing.
It sounds like we order them to be to a certain scale,
So
and then they
Right.
produce, then the photographer produces the scale.
Sometimes that depends on the quality of their camera, their lenses.
Okay. And certainly these, I have no comment and nothing negative to say about these photos, but is there a local aerial?
Well,
I'll jump in on that one just for a second. There was for many, many years. It was owned by Percy Carr and his son. Percy retired, he's in his mid-80s now, so he decided he needed to retire. And his son was in a plane wreck a few years ago. You might recall the mapping plane crashed just after it took off. And he just physically can't do it anymore. So
Right.
we used to
they
work
sold
with
sold
them.
all their business to the place in Boise or
Valley
something.
Air
Valley.
photos.
Valley Air Force, yeah.
Well, their client list.
So we don't have a local one. I don't know if there's a new one, but since we've worked with Valley, they've kind of got the database on us and everything's really in place. That saves a lot of work as far as
Okay.
ground control and stuff like that.
It was great when the local guys did it. They just come here, they put it all together and put them on the walls for us.
And bring their ladder and hang it on the wall.
Bring their own tape.
Now poor Todd's crawling
Never
around
do
on the
that.
floor.
Trying to figure out where you're gonna match, where it's most important to match, because they're not going to match all the way, so you
Yeah.
can figure out where in that big long length is where you really want it to match.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
Well, maybe Todd has had this conversation with Valley Air, but it seems to me with the digitization of everything that you may be able, I think you should have Valley Air be as flexible as possible and see if it's possible to isolate parts of their photos. So if we do need to drop down, the screen can drop down and we have before us the area of the photo that we're considering a project in. So, I know you have a limit here, but, that you've decided, but it seems like
Then we can go back
some
and
of that
order
for
a piece of
projection.
this and a piece of that.
Or get it
Yeah.
digitally.
Or-
Get it digitally.
Yeah.
Well, we get a copy of all of it digitally, so I can do some of that myself. I don't have the ability to print these large formats though.
Uh-huh. Right, but to isolate a section that we're, like we have on the screen there, it's, of course, we'd want it bigger, but just a suggestion as to what you might discuss with them since they're in the business.
Mhm.
Any other questions or suggestions? Could I have a motion, please?
I'll move the board authorize an expenditure not to exceed $10,000 for the 2018 aerial photography project.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Great, good job. Non-action items, I don't have any, don't know of any, so we'll go on to staff reports for the director's report. We have a director's report from Ellen, and I'm assuming everyone has read it. Maybe we could take questions, or Ellen, maybe you have some comments to add to your report?
Well, just that we're gonna have this legislative group from across the state here on March 1st, and we'll be meeting in the boardroom on the 6th floor of First Interstate Bank, and if anyone wants to drop in and see what's going on, you're certainly welcome to do that. We're gonna do a tour as part of them coming, which will kind of, from that boardroom, you can see all the big projects going on downtown, so we'll kind of do a show and tell there and then run through the Sawmill District. And then
Is there a time set for that meeting?
9 to 3.
9 to 3, and I'll send the agenda out to the board.
Okay.
about that.
Great.
And then we're gonna tour the Wilma Theater.
Mhm.
How many people?
Probably between 18 and 25.
Will you do a tour of other projects? Or
Probably
other?
not, we don't have,
Okay.
it's a very limited amount of
Okay,
time.
yeah.
And I think the other cities have focused like on a project.
Just a project, yeah, just because we've tried to get everybody back on the road if they're gonna be leaving by 3. A lot
Sure.
of them are going out to Billings and Great Falls and stuff, so.
Just curious, because I think Tasha had talked about maybe having the ability to go on a tour of some of the other urban renewal districts, so maybe we can schedule that for later this summer.
Oh, I think we've been talking about doing what we did several years ago,
Mhm.
where we got Mountain
The-
Lions trolley and just did a big loop and,
Yeah.
looked at all the projects that were going on. I think we're gonna try to do that again.
I think we stopped at the brewery that time.
We landed,
Perfect.
we stopped,
Just to prove some
we
facade
stopped at one of our projects.
improvement. We stopped at one of our projects, what a way to put it, yes.
Western cider this time.
Unfortunately, none of us could do anything about it.
It could be, there are any number of good places where we could stop. But I would just like to add that I think one of the benefits of that was not just seeing the individual projects, but in some cases, the improvements to the sidewalks and curbs and gutters, and how that has an impact on eliminating blight in the neighborhoods and improves the community that way. And, I think that's worth seeing as well.
If you haven't driven Mary Avenue, it's pretty cool.
I have driven Mary Avenue, it's very cool.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we've got Winter and Company coming back in next month. It's the week after our board meeting would normally be. I think it's important to get them in front of this board and have a presentation. We're a major investor in that undertaking.
Just as a reminder, this is the undertaking on design guidelines.
Design guidelines.
For the city of Missoula,
Right.
and particularly the corridors that obviously would include the Brook Street corridor through Route 3.
Yeah, Russell Street, all the major corridors are addressed. And Laval and I have been talking about this. They're coming Tuesday through Thursday. We're not sure what time they're gonna have to get out of here on Thursday to get back to Denver. So we may move our meeting next month to Wednesday, which would be the
21.
21st. Yeah, the 21st. And that'll work for them, and we don't have to mess with their travel schedules that way, if that's acceptable. And Leslie can send out an email and make sure everybody can be available.
Great, as soon as you know, so we can get it on our schedules.
I can tell you right now that I will be out of town that week, and so I would not be able to attend. And I'm sorry, because I think Winter and Company has done a lot of good work, and the preliminary reports that I've seen have been really thoughtful and well done. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry to miss the presentation to the board.
Yeah.
You'll be able to catch it on MCAT when you get back.
Stream it. Well, they're gonna present to planning board, I think, and city council, and there's some public meetings that are gonna take place, and then to our board.
They've gone that week while they're in
In
town.
those couple of days, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Okay,
yeah,
so you'll
several of
let,
them be televised.
so you'll let us know about that
Yes.
as soon as you.
I think we can count on the 21st, because that way we can just lock it in as long as we can get a quorum.
Okay. And then on the Hotel Fox Riverfront Triangle, you referred to developments of tracks other than the hotel. What other tracks were you thinking of there?
Well, there's been discussion, there's been discussion all along about the possibility of one of the tracks up on Broadway, possibly coming out of the ground at the same time as the hotel. Part of that is being driven right now by demand. There are a number of businesses in Missoula that want to be in the downtown area that are just, they're out of space. They're growing so quickly. And so that's part of it. Then the other part of it is there's a parking component that impacts Providence when we take down that parking garage and take out some of the surface parking.
So these are tracks that would otherwise be in phases of the Hotel Fox
Right.
project?
We would like to have
Okay.
phase 1 and 2 happening simultaneously.
Okay, all right. And then on Mary Avenue West, I was gonna ask Annette what the neighborhood reaction has been.
Yeah, I have not heard anything from, I have not heard anything from the neighborhood specific, the people who live like right along Mary. We did have someone, and I don't remember the name, he had concern about the width of the street and the concern that people were not going around the roundabout, but over the roundabout. We were able to provide him information that the street is constructed to standards that are acceptable and were approved by, recommended by our engineers and approved by our engineering department. They meet city standards and they meet codes. They certainly are narrower than they were, and narrower than some other lanes in the city. But to my knowledge, things are functioning quite well out there. Initially, when it opened, was it just before Christmas, I believe? We had snow, and it wasn't yet on the snow plowing schedule, and so that needed to get ramped up. I have not, beyond that, heard any reactions.
I've heard from the guy on Clark Street, I forget his name, he's just south of the roundabout. They were quite skeptical of it at first, but I see him at the Grizz basketball games all the time. And they're very pleased with what they see with the roundabout and the street lighting. And so it's encouraging to see how positive they are of it now. They were quite skeptical of it at the beginning, but they really like the improvements that have gone in.
Good.
So
I
there
would
is some
have
positive reaction.
I recall that leaving the street at that, what, maybe narrower than other streets, was a positive for the neighbors on that street to somewhat mitigate any traffic speed that they were concerned about. So that was partly at the neighborhood request to keep it that way. And the trees will make it better too. Sometimes if you don't hear anything, that's good because you're likely to hear complaints first, so
Sure.
Like
you know,
Annette
that's a
said, the
good
person who
sign.
was complaining doesn't live anywhere near.
Anywhere near there. One person was excited about the streetlights because he couldn't wait to see the snow.
Against the light at night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. On the downtown master plan, Ellen, do we have a an idea of what the request from MRA is going to be?
We'll know more by the end of the month. We're trying to wrap up the private fundraising by the end of the month. It's getting kind of, it's getting confusing because Downtown Association is right in the middle of sponsorship requests for the events downtown. Roots Fest downtown tonight, out to lunch, and at the same time, we're asking for money for the downtown master plan, so we're trying to wrap that up, and it's going well. I mean, I'm amazed. Nobody's told me yet, no yet. And I think everybody sees the value of it.
Yeah, great.
Nobody has told you no.
Well, I get told no, trust me. This has been an easier ask than River City Roots is sometimes.
On the intersection improvements, does the Front Street ERD cover both sides of Higgins?
Mhm.
The west side,
Yes.
Yes,
does it? Okay.
Just to the edge of the
just to the
right-of-way.
edge of the right of way.
Okay, all right,
We were very intentional about bringing everything to property
Okay.
lines, not center lines of streets.
okay. I just wanted to make sure if we're impacting intersections that we can impact both sides of the street. Okay, good, all right. Are there other questions on Ellen's report, the director's report? Then we have the staff activities, and I just have one question on, what's the status on the California street design?
We are working through it. It's in WGM's hands right now. They're developing design alternatives based on the meetings that we had with the public stakeholders and the private stakeholders. We took that input in, and they are developing different alternatives. We should have that, I'm hoping, in a couple weeks or sometime in March. When we have those, we'll take those back to the stakeholders to show those and work towards selecting a preferred design alternative. And we can certainly show those to the MRA board when they are available.
Yeah, I noticed it was taking significant staff time, increasing staff time. So, good.
Yeah, we're meeting one-on-one with neighbors and groups of neighbors and city departments and agencies, so.
Okay. Are there other questions for, on staff reports, or? We have no other items to come before this meeting?
Anything
And
in
I'm
the
here,
budget report?
yeah. So if you have any questions on the budget reports, they're essentially up to date. The one thing I did want to point out, and like Ellen discussed with ERD3, is that we will be bringing back a bond for the MRL property because that was a significant expense that we've kind of incurred over the past 10 months that we're carrying in the cash on that district. So that's why on the bottom of columns 2 and 3, you'll see there's a negative down here. That's essentially, then we're not in budget because of the cash. So, but what you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner in the yellow is that I've gone back and grabbed all the project savings. If something's like, for example, on the Mary Avenue West project or the South Reserve Crossing project, then that's why you see there is a positive down there now. But that'll change when we do the bond.
Right, okay. Other questions for Jill? Okay, meeting's adjourned, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.